Hi. I almost had the whole thing done and then I had to come out because they're still working on the air conditioning. So that's what I'm doing for you. All right. I wanted to talk this week because Kenny asked me. Kenny said, what did Jesus do after he died before he went up into heaven? Raised from the dead. It's very confusing sometimes to me, but I think raised from the dead means he got off the slab that he was on and walked around on earth. Ascension, I think, means he went up into heaven. So there was a period of time between the time that he died and the time that he went up into heaven. And I never kind of knew what happened in that time or why. Why didn't he just go up into heaven? So I looked it up. I found some information. And so what I found was there were 9 times that Jesus showed himself to humans, to people. It was different people and sometimes the same. So he died on Friday. They put him in the tomb on Saturday. So he was still in the tomb on Saturday. On Sunday, Mary Magdalene, and I thought it was his mom, but it doesn't sound like it. Could be. But Mary Magdalene and some other women went to take care of the body. You know, get it ready, right? Put some, wrap it and do whatever it needs to be done for this person who passed away. And they get there, and the stone is gone, and there's no body inside. And it was scary, and Mary ran to tell the disciples, and then she came back. And when she came back, there was someone standing there. This was the first time Jesus showed himself to a person. And the first time Jesus showed himself to a person was to Mary Magdalene. And he said, "It's me. Don't you recognize me?" And she said, "Oh, my Lord and my God." First time he showed himself was not to the disciples, was not even to his mom. It was to Mary, a woman, a friend, and not someone that we heard a real lot about, but enough to know that she was part of that. And pretty sure she was important to him. That was the first time he showed himself. The second time was when there were 2 men. They were walking to this town called Emmaus. And they were talking about what had happened, that this man had died and then rose again. He was walking around. They couldn't believe it. And they didn't understand it. And Jesus saw them and started walking with them. They didn't know it was him. And he said, "I don't understand why you don't get this. It's in the Bible." So he started teaching them. He's teaching them what's happening and why he was there. So he shows himself to Mary, a woman. He shows himself to 2 men that he didn't really know and they didn't really know him, to teach them. It's only the 3rd time that he saw people. It was not the first or the second time. He showed himself to the disciples. They were all in a room. The door was closed and locked, and Thomas wasn't there. All of a sudden, he showed up. And they were amazed and in love. It just is amazing. And so when he left, they went to tell Thomas. But when they told Thomas, he didn't believe him. He was like, "I don't know. That doesn't sound right to me. Unless I see it, unless I can touch what, the wounds that he's had from that, I don't think I'm going to believe it." So the 4th time that Jesus saw somebody was all of the disciples, including Thomas. And Jesus forgave him for not believing and said, "Listen, touch him. I'm right here, touch it." And Thomas didn't want to. And Jesus said, "You're going to have to. If you want to believe, you got to believe." That was the 4th time. The 5th time that Jesus saw people, only Paul tells us about in 1 Corinthians. And Paul said that Jesus appeared to over 500 people, I guess in a group. I'm pretty sure to teach. The 6th time, Jesus had earlier at the Last Supper told the disciples that after he died, they would all meet in Galilee. And so he had to make that come true. So they ended up all meeting in Galilee. And then the 7th time, he showed himself to 7 disciples: Peter and John, James, Thomas, Nathaniel, and 2 others. And at that time, they were at Lake Galilee, and I think it's Galilee, and Peter caught 153 fish, and then asked Jesus to ask him if Peter loves him 3 times. And that, was going back to, that's how Jesus, one of the things that Jesus did, one of the miracles that he did, was to show them that he could control the weather. He could find the fish for them so they could have so much fish they couldn't even imagine. It was to remember all the stuff that Jesus did. The 8th time, he met with his brother, James, his physical brother. Family is important. And it was important to him. And then the 9th time was when he ascended, when he went into heaven. And that was at the Mount of Olives. And before he went up, all the disciples were there. And now he changed them from disciples to apostles. And he said, listen, you got to do what I'm doing. You got to keep teaching. You got to tell people about me. You've seen it. You've been there. You've touched me. It's got to keep going. This information has to keep going. And I want you to go, this is what he said, I want you to go into Jerusalem in 10 days and meet at this place. And that's where Pentecost happened. That's where the disciples were given the power to do what Jesus did, to perform miracles, to heal, to teach. All right, so why? Why is this important? Why did he have to stay and see people 9 times? I think there's a lot of reasons. I think the first reason, I think he had to show, by talking to Mary, I think what he had to show is it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter what your religion is. It doesn't matter whether you're a male or a female or anything that you choose to call yourself. It doesn't matter. You're in God's world. You're in God's life. God loves you. And if you choose to accept it, if you choose to be open to it, it's yours. I think that the reason he had to see the 2 men walking to Emmaus was to be able to teach again, to be able to connect to 2 people he didn't get to connect to before, and to show them. It's been written in the Bible since before, since hundreds of years, thousands of years before. There's going to be somebody who's going to come and save us. I think that he had to see the disciples because he had to show them it was true all along. Everything he said, everything he did, it was true. And I think that Thomas wasn't there, and then he went to see Thomas. I think that he had to do that to set up the situation that Thomas was not going to necessarily believe, because he has to be telling them, I forgive you. Even for something as strong, as important as believing in me, I forgive you for doubting. Come to me. Touch it. I got you, baby. Do it. It'd be nice if you could remember without having to do that, but I got you. I think that Paul telling us that he appeared to over 500 people, I think it was more teaching. I think it was more people he was connecting to. You think you're done with something. You have to keep doing more things. You have to keep going. You have to keep reaching other people. I think the reason that I'm wondering if the reason that he told his disciples at the Last Supper that he was going to meet them in Galilee, and then met them in Galilee, gave them a connection between the time that he was alive and right before he was going up to heaven, so that there was a connection between there, that Jesus was there and now he's in Galilee. And you can believe what I tell you. I think he had to show himself to the 7 disciples to help Peter. Honestly, Peter was important to him. And I think having him, helping him to catch the 153 fish, and then having to tell him, I love you. Having to have Peter make up for not saying it. Make up for not acknowledging that he knew him when he was dying. Peter had to be able to make up for what he did. And Jesus set that scene up so he could. I think he met with his brother James because he knows family is important. And yeah, God's his family, but so was James and his mother Mary and even Joseph. He had to meet with him to show this is important. And the commission. Meeting on the Mount of Olives, because he's got this beautiful scene where he can go up and be in heaven and they can watch him. But before that, listen guys, I'm going to be up in heaven. I'm not going to be physically here. I can't walk with people when they're walking on the road. I can't show myself to 500 people. It's up to you. And it's got to be important enough, and it's got to be strong enough that it continues. So listen, Jesus had to stay because it wasn't quite finished. The job wasn't quite finished. And he had to finish it to a point. He had to make it important enough that in 2023, I'm still talking about it. You're still talking about it. You're still watching the video. You're going to church. He had to connect all the stuff together. All the open-ended things that were happening, he had to connect it. I can't even imagine. But within these 9 meetings, he forgave. He loved. He accepted everyone. He brought the Bible into it so we all know that we can trust what it says in the Bible. He had to show that the base of all of this is love. Love is it. God is love. Jesus is love. The base of all of this is take care of each other, teach each other, show each other that we're here for each other, that I am here for you. So, this week, remember that. It's true. Jesus showed them it was true. And being true means we really need to take care of each other and be there for each other. And it doesn't matter who we are, what we look like, what our job is, what we choose to call ourselves. It doesn't matter. We can do whatever. We can still be part of God's world. Next week I want to talk about Pentecost, but this week I just want to know Jesus is there, he's there now, and he's got this. So, have a good week. I love you. I miss you a lot, but we'll be together soon. Take care.